What if the dollars in your pocket suddenly lost its global power?
The other thing they're not telling you about the economy, the dollar is worthless.
What if it is no longer accepted in certain countries for trade around the globe?
It's a whole hoax. And you know who's playing into the hoax? People like you and the fake news media.
Scary, isn't it? Well, right now, a financial showdown is brewing. BRICS versus the West, and the future of the US dollars hang in the balance.
The West likes to dismiss the BRICS alliance as a political sideshow, but is it starting to crack the US-led global order? Let's get to the bottom line.
Could a new BRICS currency by 2025 spell the end of America's financial dominance? Well, today we are unpacking exactly what's happening with de-dollarization, why the world is seriously considering an alternative currency, and what this massive shift could mean for your savings, your investments, and your future. Trust me, you want to stick around, because if the dollar's reign ends, the world and your wallet will never be the same. Real quick, if you're new here, my name is Chika, and I made these videos to help you understand money the way the rich does, so you can start building your very own version of financial freedom. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because every week on Wednesdays and Sundays, I break down money, financial markets, and how to protect your wealth. Now, let's get into it. Big changes are underway in 2025. The BRICS group, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and others are making bold moves on the world stage. They've even been growing. In 2023, they invited new members like Egypt, Iran, Ethiopia, and the UAE. And by 2025, Indonesia joined in as well. These countries together represent over 40% of the world's population and about 1/3 of the world economy. Actually, a slightly bigger share than the G7 group of the Western economies. No wonder people are paying attention. One buzzword you would hear is de-dollarization. This means countries reducing their use of the US dollars, and it's already happening. China and Russia now trade oil and other commodities in Chinese yuan instead of the dollars. In fact, China has signed deals with Saudi Arabia and Brazil to trade using the Chinese yuan for their oil and other products. This is a big deal because for decades, most international trade, especially for oil, has been done in the US dollars. Even central banks around the world are shifting some reserves to gold and other currencies due to this trend. Recent headlines shows that the pace is picking up. After the war in Ukraine and heavy US-led sanctions on Russia, many countries grew uneasy seeing how the US could freeze a nation's assets overnight. This has pushed them to seek alternatives. By early 2025, even the US government is taking notes. President Donald Trump warned that if BRICS nations tries to replace the US dollars with a new currency, he will hit them with 100% tariffs. Well, he's gonna do it. We know that already. Now, that's a dramatic warning. It shows how serious this contest has become. It's truly BRICS versus the US in a race to shape the future of global money. I already made a video covering the 100% BRICS tariffs. It's worth watching so you can get a full picture of this. I'll leave it in the description. So, what exactly do these BRICS countries want? In short, more financial independence from the West and the US dollars. Simple. Oh, and they have few big ideas on how to get there. Number one, create a new BRICS currency. There are talks of a potential BRICS currency in 2025 that member countries could use among themselves for trade. Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, is a major supporter of this idea. At the 2023 summit, Lula called the BRICS nation to create a common currency for trade and investment to reduce the reliance on the US dollars. He argued that countries like theirs shouldn't have to trade in dollars at all. Think of it like how the European countries created the euros. Such a BRICS trading currency could make payment easier and shield them away from dollar exchange rates. However, other BRICS leaders are more cautious of this approach. For example, India is not really supporting this. They say that there is no idea of a BRICS currency yet, and they focus more instead on using their national currencies for trading. China hasn't explicitly backed a new currency plan in public, but China's President Xi has spoken about reforming the global financial system in general. Another option is to trade in their own currency, de-dollarization. All BRICS members agree on one thing: they want to use the dollars less. Instead of pricing everything in USD, they aim to use their local money like the Chinese yuan, the Indian rupee, and so on for cross-border deals. Russia President Putin, who attended BRICS 2023 via video, said the group discussed switching trade away from dollars towards their own currencies. For instance, if India buys oil from Russia, well, they could pay in rupees or rubles. This way, they aren't exposed to US sanctions or dollar shortage. BRICS countries are setting up agreements to make this easier. Brazil and China have a deal to trade in yuan or real directly, and Russia and India have tried arrangements to trade in rubles or rupees. The idea is to chip away at the dollar dominance bit by bit. That's the heart of de-dollarization. And another option is the oil and the petro yuan. Perhaps the most dangerous daring move is about oil. Oil is the most traded commodity in the world. It's been priced in US dollars for ages, hence the term petrodollar. BRICS nations want to break from that norm. Russia, under Western sanctions, is already selling oil to countries like China and India in non-dollar currencies. And importantly, Saudi Arabia, the world top oil exporter, has shown openness to joining BRICS and selling oil in Chinese yuan. Some have dubbed this idea the petro yuan. In late 2024, reports said that Saudi Arabia was considering pricing oil in yuan and even joined a pilot for a digital currency payment system with China. If Saudi Arabia and other big oil countries like the UAE or Iran, which are joining the BRICS, trade oil in currencies like the yuan, it directly challenges the dollar supremacy in oil markets. Lastly, I'll talk about the alternative payment systems that the BRICS can actually deploy. To support trading in their own currencies, BRICS members are also exploring new payment networks. Right now, much of international banking uses SWIFT, a messaging network that the US has influence over. Russia, cut off from SWIFT due to sanctions, developed its own system and, along with China, is pushing alternatives. One example is Project mBridge, a new system using central bank digital currencies which China, UAE, Hong Kong and others are actually testing. It allows them to send instant payments without SWIFT. I already made a video about this, so it's worth checking it out as well. I'll leave the link in the description. These alternative systems could lead BRICS to settle trades in their own currency without US oversight. The motivation is clear. If they can't be blocked or sanctioned via the US dollar system, they have more freedom. Imagine a parallel financial highway that the US can't easily control. Overall, BRICS' goal is to reduce dollar dependencies. They want a world where the US dollar is no longer the default for every trade or loan. This could mean eventually having a new global reserve currency, maybe a BRICS one, to stand beside or even replace the dollar. It is an ambitious plan. So, let's be real here. Why would all this threaten the US dollars? Well, the dollar's power comes from being everywhere. It is the world primary reserve currency, meaning governments and banks hold tons of dollars as savings, and it's used in about 80% of global trade transactions worldwide. Countries need dollars to buy oil, to settle bills, and to stabilize their own currency. This huge demand for dollars has been a major advantage for the United States. Some call it Americans' exorbitant privilege. It allows the US government to print money and run big deficits, spending more than it earns without the immediate fallout, because other countries are willing to hold that money. It also keeps the US borrowing costs lower and makes the dollars relatively strong and stable. If the BRICS succeed in their de-dollarization plans, the demand for dollars could drop. Think of it like a popular video game. If everyone suddenly stops playing it, the value of that currency game falls. Likewise, if fewer countries need the dollar would weaken. For the US, this poses significant risk. Borrowing money might get more expensive. The government might face budget pressures because it can easily pressure companies or countries to keep their money in their balance sheet. It can easily finance big spending by selling treasury bonds abroad. In plain terms, the US could no longer live beyond its means as easily as it did before. For Americans, a weaker dollar internationally could translate to higher inflation at home. Why? The US imports a lot of goods, from cars to electronics to everyday items. So if the dollars buy less on a global market, those imports could cost more, meaning prices in US stores could rise. The US stock market could also take a hit. Global investors might pull money out of the US stocks and put it elsewhere, causing the US stocks value to drop. Globally, the end of the dollar's reign would shake things up. Right now, many countries peg their currency to the dollar or rely on it for stability. A shift away could mean uncertainty and volatility as the world adjusts to new ways of doing business. It might fragment the financial system. Instead of one big common currency language, the dollars, there could be several. That could make trade and finance a lot less efficient in the transition period. On the geopolitical side, the US would lose influence. The dollar is a tool of America's soft power. For example, US sanctions work largely because the dollar is so dominant. If that dominance fails, well, US sanctions and global leadership in finance weakens. However, it's worth noting that all of this wouldn't happen overnight. The dollar's throne, built over 80 years, wouldn't crumble in a day. But the BRICS challenge is a clear signal that the world economic order could slowly shift. It has happened before. About 100 years ago, the British pound was the world top currency, and eventually the US dollars took its place. History shows that no currency stays king forever. The big question is whether we are at the start of another transition period. Here's a question for you. Do you think we are witnessing the end of the US dollar's reign, or will the dollar fight back and remain dominant? Take a second. Let me know your thoughts in the comment. I'm really curious. Okay, let's bring this back to reality once again. Is the dollar actually at risk, or is this just all talk? Well, experts have a lot to say about it, and they don't all agree. On one hand, many experts are skeptical that a new BRICS currency or the yuan could truly upstage the dollars anytime soon. The US dollar is deeply entrenched. It still makes up to 58% of global foreign reserves, the biggest slice so far, while the Chinese yuan accounts for just 2% of their reserves. In global trade invoicing, the dollar is still used for majority of the deals. In some regions, up to 80% of transactions. This gives the dollar a huge network advantage. Everyone uses it because everyone else uses it. It's a bit of English being a common language for business because everybody speaks it for business. Essentially, despite all the talks of de-dollarization, the dollar dominance hasn't truly been dented yet on a large scale. There are also practical challenges in creating a new BRICS currency or even trading in local currencies. South Africa's central bank governor pointed out that a common currency would require major political and economic coordination, a shared central bank, a unified financial policies, and trust that each country will keep the rules. Yeah, that's not going to happen. Remember, BRICS nations are very different from each other. China's economy is far bigger than that of South Africa's. India and China are regional rivals in some ways, and their politics and economic systems are widely different. Getting them to share one currency would be much harder than, say, the creation of euro. And even Europe struggled with the euros at first. It suffices to say that a BRICS currency might not be stable or trusted globally enough. BRICS also need to solve issues like trade imbalances. For example, Russia ended up with a pile of Indian rupees it couldn't use after selling oil to India. And BRICS also have to decide who issues or backs this new currency. These are not small hurdles, guys. Hence, many economists agree that the US dollar isn't in any imminent danger and it won't die so quickly. Okay, so we've talked big picture, but how might this affect you personally? Let's break it down by different perspectives, whether you're an investor, a traveler, or just saving money for the future. If you're an investor, if you invest in stocks, bonds, or keep money in a bank, changes to the dollar status could impact your returns. A decline in dollar dominance could lead to higher US interest rates and lower stock market value over time. Companies that rely on cheap borrowing might struggle as rates rises. Investors might see more volatility in market as global money shifts around. So to protect against this, diversification is key. Basically, don't put all your eggs in one basket, like US assets only. For example, having some investment in other countries and in other assets like gold and Bitcoin could hedge against a weaker dollar. If you're a traveler, well, currency changes can hit travelers pretty directly in the wallet. If the US dollar loses value globally, American travelers will find trips abroad more expensive. Say you go to Europe or Asia, your dollars would convert to fewer euros, yens, or rupees. So hotels, meals, souvenirs will cost you more than they do before the dollar value weakened. On the flip side, if you're outside the US, a weaker dollars could make visiting the United States cheaper for you. For example, if you earn in euros or, some other strong currency, this might buy you more dollars, lowering the cost of that New York vacation you always dream of. However, if multiple currencies start being used globally, travelers might also need to juggle more exchange rates. Imagine having to deal with yuan or a BRICS coin in addition to dollars and euros. Well, it might add a layer of complexity to international travel and shopping. And let's talk about the savers and consumers. Because for everyday Americans, if the dollar's reign truly fades, one concern is inflation. Remember, a weaker dollar means imports like electronics, clothing, even food in some cases, they become pricier in dollar terms. This could erode the purchasing power of your savings. In plain English, your $100 might buy less stuff than it used to. Savers might need to rethink how they store wealth. Some might choose assets that historically hold value like gold, Bitcoin, real estate. This acts as shield against a falling dollars. The United States could also face higher interest rates to attract investors to buy its bond, which means higher rates for things like mortgages and car loans. All of this is a maybe, not a definite, but it's something to watch. If you're saving up for college, retirement, or even a big purchase, it's wise to stay informed about this shift so you are not caught off guard by changes in the dollar's values down the line. From an international perspective, if you live outside of the United States, the dollar dominance or decline still affects you. A multipolar currency world might level the playing field for other economies. Your country might not need to stockpile as many dollars or worry about US sanctions anymore, which could give your government some breathing rooms in policies. You might see more trade in your local currencies, potentially boosting national pride and financial stability at home. However, there's a flip side. The US dollars has been a relatively stable anchor for the world. If it loses that role, there's uncertainty about what replaces it. A shaky transition could hurt economies everywhere if not managed carefully. For example, if you're in a country that heavily relies on exporting to the US, a weaker dollar might reduce US buying power for your country goods. Or if your government reserve loses value, it could mean impact on public finances. In summary, for people around the world, there could be benefits in loosening the dollar grip, more independence, but also risk, uncertainty, and political instability. It's a development to keep an eye on, whether you are in New York, New Delhi, or even Nairobi. There you have it, folks. The battle of BRICS versus the West in finance is just beginning, and the story of the US dollars, whether it's dying or just evolving, will impact us all. What do you think? Is the US dollar's reign ending, or will it remain the world go-to currency? I'd love to hear your perspective, especially from viewers around the world. If you found this video informative, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dive on global trends. Also, don't forget to turn on the notification bell because every Wednesdays and Sundays, I break down money, financial markets, and how to protect your wealth so you can stay ahead no matter what the economy throws your way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.